Podcasts. Everybody listens to them. It seems like everybody has one. But are local advertisers using them? And what do they think about local podcasts? We'll find out in this Local Marketing Minute.
Welcome to Corey's Local Marketing Minute, an enlightening and entertaining look at what's happening in the world of local advertising and marketing. Corey's Local Marketing Minute is brought to you by Adcelerant.
Adcelerant provides best-in-class digital advertising solutions. Our proprietary technology covers your entire sales funnel, from proposal creation and campaign launch to monitored performance. We collaborate with local media companies and agencies to deliver excellent customer service, sales support, campaign management, and more. As an industry leader, we'll go above and beyond to ensure your success. Unlock your digital advertising potential with Adcelerant.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a good day or night or whatever time you usually look at this kind of stuff. This episode, we're going to be focusing on podcasts and what local advertisers think about podcasts. But before we do, remember to subscribe. That way you'll be part of the club. But you can also like and comment, engage, share, criticize, critique, any other cut words you can think of. So let's get into it. The topic this time is podcasts. We asked our local advertiser panel, also known as the SMB panel, a few questions about podcasts. Let's see what they had to say, and we'll do it by the numbers. Our first number is 58%. That is the percentage of panelists who said they have listened to a podcast at least once a month. At least once a month. And 43% in the past week. Let's remember, we're talking to local advertisers, meaning our panel is made up of local businesses, small and medium businesses that are engaged in advertising. They are out there advertising, so not absolutely everybody. And ones that have an interest in advertising or they wouldn't be on the panel. So, pretty strong interest level as a listener. Now, what percentage of this group, actually it doesn't have to be of this group, what percentage of the panel said, yeah, we've sponsored or advertised with the podcast? 17%. Most of them said they were pre, mid, or post-roll. 26% said they sponsored the segments. 4% said product placement. Anyway, only 17%. Pretty small pool. But we did ask those guys, okay, great. How effective was podcast advertising? What percentage said extremely or very? Ooh, look, I can be clever. Well, more clever. 11%. Now, that isn't 11% of the 17%. I mean, it's of that group, but it's 11%. Don't compare the 11 to the 17. I am losing you people, aren't I? Of all of the local advertisers who said they sponsored or had an ad on a podcast, 11% said it was effective. That's what I'm talking about. Lordy. Now, let's go one step farther. Let's start playing around with this word, local. And the question was, have you ever listened to a locally focused podcast? Meaning a podcast that focuses on your specific geographic region or area. What percentage said, yeah, I've listened to one of those? 24%. So remember, the overall listening to a podcast is a lot higher. 24% said, yeah, I listened to a local one. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now we said, okay, even a little bit more specific. The question was, I think it's important to read it. In recent years, many local news or media organizations have started producing podcasts to broaden their audience reach and advertising platforms. I mean, fair enough, it might not be locally focused, but it's a local media company doing a podcast. What percentage of local businesses said they've listened to one of those? 12%. So half of that 24, right? So 24% said, I've listened to a locally focused podcast. Half of that said they've listened to a podcast produced by a local media company. So now we wanted to understand what would get them excited about a local podcast, whether or not it's produced by a local media company, but a locally focused podcast. What would they be interested in, and what would they be interested in advertising on? Okay, two things. Here are some of the topics we came up with. The topics we had to choose from were, and these are all local, you might as well put this in front of all of these, right? Local things to do, local business, you get the idea. Crime, dining, politics, sports, gardening, and real estate. So, first, business owner, what would you be interested in listening to? What subjects? Well, coming in first, what's things to do, 27%. Then, local businesses at 22%. And third, crime at 20%. Let me fill in the rest. Then we asked, which of these would you be very or extremely interested in advertising on if they existed? Number one, business at 18%. Now, right behind it, things to do at 17%. Let me get the others up. Okay, I want to point out a couple things that we saw that we think are worth noting if you happen to be at a local media company thinking about developing local podcasts or local digital audio, wondering what to focus on. Well, things to do will be very popular with your listeners and pretty good with advertisers, so that's pretty safe. This one surprised me. Podcasts about local businesses. It's more of a B2B play, right? Have a local podcast about businesses, for businesses, by businesses. You get the idea. Crime's hilarious to me. That came out wrong. Very high interest in crime, but nobody wants to advertise with it, except maybe if you're a home security company. They like to listen to it, they want to stay away from it. And speaking of crime, politics, kind of the same thing. Interest is much higher the interest of advertising with it. Who can blame them? But finally, this one I think is interesting to note because we've spoken to a lot of local media companies and this seems to be a big focus. Local sports. Man, local sports, that's where it's at. But the interest isn't as high as other things, and the interest in advertising isn't that much higher. I'm just wondering if the interest in local sports, at least in the form of a podcast, might not be the right fit. Maybe. I don't know. Then again, I lived in Dallas for 3 years, and seriously, some of their high school football fields are nicer than some professional fields. At least some universities. I ain't kidding. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you about podcasting. Over half of business owners listen to a podcast. Not a whole lot of them. Maybe about a quarter of them listen to something locally focused. Half of that listen to something produced by a local news organization or media company. And this are the local subjects they're interested in and where they think they'd like to advertise. So if I create a podcast that focuses on things to do at businesses, but then as the event is happening, I actually do some kind of Ocean's 11 thing and then go out to eat afterwards, that's a can't miss podcast. I got my next gig.
You've been watching Corey's Local Marketing Minute, sponsored by our friends at AdCellerant. Learn more at adcellerant.com. Remember, if you'd like to hear more of Corey's insights, check out the Local Marketing Trends podcast. Just Google Burrell Podcast or look for the podcast link on BurrellAssociates.com.